Hello, dear viewers of various spiritual paths. This video kicks off a series of documentaries about the life of John Newbrough. John Newbrough is famous for having channeled the New Age Bible entitled Oahspe, and the purpose of this video is to review research which indicates and actually proves in many cases that John Newbrough was in fact a false prophet, a scam artist, someone who was seeking fame, glory, and power, and not at all in service to the people of the world as he promoted himself. Again, I ask you to consider all the evidence and not summarily simply reject the evidence before you've had a chance to consider it. That which I am presenting is not simply opinion or rumor, it's documentation from that era. The problem has been that there's been a lot of misinformation or propaganda that has been put out by some of his family members and by the cult churches and cult lodges which he initiated. And these videos are here to set the record straight. I'd like everyone to keep in mind that I'm not advocating that Oahspe is somehow a bad book or a false book. I think it is one of the most impressive spiritualism books that have ever been published in the history of this world. I don't believe everything in it is true. Oahspe itself states that not everything in Oahspe is perfect or true. And we have to think for ourselves. We have to examine evidence. That is what Oahspe advocates, and that's what the new era is all about. People thinking for themselves and not accepting anything on authority. And so I would like to present my case for disassociating Newbrough from Oahspe. It's not the same thing. I can bring evidence against Newbrough. That doesn't mean that I'm bringing evidence against Oahspe, although I would bring evidence against the parts of Oahspe which Newbrough altered dishonestly, disingenuously. But I'm not only condemning what Newbrough actually basically marred the book by putting certain text into Oahspe, but the rest of the book is actually a great model for how to live your life. It's not the last word on any of the best ways to live a spiritual life. Again, Oahspe states that itself. Only the Creator is perfect, and everyone should basically seek the Creator for the best way to proceed in their spiritual life. And Oahspe is just one book. It's a good book, and but it has become cultish in some circles. And the reason for that is because of John Newbrough's initial efforts to make Oahspe into a cult book. Not so unlike how the Masons operate in their dark circles of the world. So I would like to explain the format. Part one will go over the different channeling histories that Newbrough claimed as his method. I found 5 different accounts of how Newbrough channeled this. I did a video early on this, and there was just 4, but I found another one. And I also realized there were some parts that I didn't quite point out, so which also indicate a lot of contradictions. This part alone proves that Newbrough has got something up his sleeve. He's not being forthright about it. Part 2 is about his story that he had this 10-year-long preparation period, this purification period, and there's contradictions in that story. 2, he didn't do 10 years of purification. not especially when you consider what he did after the book was published. Part 3 is fraudulently publishing letters of recommendation for Oahspe under not using his rightful name, but using the names of other people. And there's evidence of that. And then the next part will be considering the alterations that Newbrough made. This is based on super accurate linguistic authorship software, which shows which parts Newbrough wrote. Newbrough wrote a number of books during his life, and and because of that, we can compare the text that he wrote himself with the various books of Oahspe, and there are accurate results which confirm that Newbrough did write certain parts of Oahspe, and that is not what should ever have happened. The following part will be considering his adultery with Miss Sweet while he was married to his first wife, and this took place after Oahspe was published, and he had a child born out of wedlock, and all of this goes against Oahspe's own teachings and against even the teachings of which he had studied as a member of the spiritualism circles. So this is another contradiction. Like, if he did his purification, why does he have to go off and abandon his wife and 3 children for a woman much younger than him? It didn't make any sense because it's an immoral thing to do. Okay, and then the following part will consider the people innocent people he got killed. He didn't commit murder, but because of his carelessness or callousness, people died or were injured, seriously injured. There's not been a lot of attention to that. And part 5 will be swindling Shalam members. He started, not that Shalam was the first community he ever belonged to, where people felt cheated and abused, but that certainly happened. So by swindle, I mean, he took all their land and money and mistreated them at the colony of Shalam. And when they couldn't take it anymore, they were basically walking out of there without a dime in their pocket to somehow start their life again. That is not an act of kindness of any faithist that I could ever conceive of. So that certainly is not how faithists are supposed to live their lives. The final part will be the history of Newbrough starting his own cults, which is completely against what Oahspe was created for. Oahspe was initiated to, in fact, teach men and women to seek the Creator directly without the need of any church or book or priest or minister. And yet, the first thing Newbrough does is start instigating rites and ceremonies with priests and rabbis, very similar to what the Masons do. Of course, Newbrough was a Mason, which is basically, although it wasn't necessarily evil in its original days, and I'm not saying all Masons of every member is actually an evil person. I'm just saying that the very top ones are, because this is where the richest and most corrupt members of our society congregate in secret with various rituals that they perform, and many of them are satanic. And it is a racist organization, and even to this day, women also are not allowed. Blacks, people of color, are not allowed. If anything, they have to go to another group of the Masons. They're not allowed to be with the rich white old men who want to rule this world. So again, that was Newbrough. That's where Newbrough was coming from. Okay. All right, so multiple Oahspe channeling lies. The first article's from the Banner of Light, 1882, January 21st. And I'll just be reading the most prominent, significant text. The rest of it's there too. You can read it if you wish, but I'll just read the most prominent being that which I bolded. Okay, quote, "So after a while," and this is from John Newbrough, "so after a while I took it into my head that wise and exalted angels would commune better with us if we purified ourselves physically and spiritually." Okay, this contradicts his other accounts. He took it into his head. That means he just thought of himself. Later on, he would describe angels who came to him directly and said they wanted him to go through a period of purification. This is direct communication from angels. This is a contradiction. Okay, and then it says, in 6 years training, okay, so 6 years, not 10 years, not a decade, as he says in other newspaper articles. 6 years, that's a contradiction. Okay, and also at the end it says, a few of the drawings I was told to copy from other books such as Saturn, the Egyptian ceremonies, etc. This is a strange, Oahspe was not brought into this world to give people a history lesson of all the religions and cults. In fact, Oahspe came to this world to help people turn away from them, to realize none of these past religions and cults were, the false gods and so on, they were all to be avoided. Not good. Just turn to the Creator, okay? You don't need to worship the stars. You don't need to worship Egyptian gods, false gods. You just need the Creator, the Creator's love. That's all you need. So this statement is very anti-Oahspe in itself. It's not the only one by any means. Okay, next article is from the New York Herald Tribune, April 13th, 1882. I quote from John Newbrough. "In the year 1873, while I was in a state of meditation, I was visited by an angel of light called Ainu, who informed me that there was a book in the spirit world which contained a revelation from God, and that I was to be the medium for its translation into the English language. The angel's name was Ainu, and he told me that the book was to be called Oahspe." Okay, so Oahspe was published in 1882. The actual channeling in some of the cases was 1881, sometimes 1881. I think there's even one that basically says it was in, yeah, anyway. So the problem with this year 1873 is twofold. One, that's within the 10 years that was told in other passages, in other accounts of how the book was channeled. So again, there's a contradiction there. The second problem is that in 1874, Newbrough published another book where he explicitly states, I don't know whether spiritualism exists. I don't know if there are anything such as angels or spirits. I have no idea whether that's true. He was in spiritualism circles, but it was often to disprove spiritualism, not to affirm it. And I don't have a problem with him trying to prove out hoaxes of spiritualism. I don't know, not at all. But if you claim that you've been psychic since you were a small boy and that your mother was psychic and could hear spirits when you were a child, and then you say in a book in 1874 you don't believe or you don't really know if there's such a thing as spirits or angels, then what the heck? It contradicts your past accounts. And since this happened in 1873, and then in the following year he published the book, you can only conclude that if he really said he didn't believe in spiritualism, and he has this account saying that he was visited by an angel in 1873, that's a contradiction. Because if it really had happened in 1873 that he was visited by an angel of light, then he wouldn't have published in 1874 a book where he claims he doesn't believe in angels necessarily. He has no idea whether it's true or not. That's a contradiction. Another problem is he gave the name of the angel called Ainu. And that's a contradiction because Oahspe states that very clearly that in no case did any special spiritual project ever take place, was ever ordained by the upper heavens, where angels by name came into the lives, came into communications with mortals. So this is a contradiction. according to Oahspe, this should never happen with a real angel from the second resurrection or above. So that's, again, a mark against the account. Also, there's another contradiction in that it's a single angel visited by an angel, just one, because in other accounts, Newbrough will say, well, it was more than one angel. It was, I don't know, I couldn't tell you whether it was 6 or 20, but it was more than one. So that's a contradiction. There's no reason for there to be a mistake. He didn't forget about it. It just wasn't a lapse in memory. It's just Newbrough changing the story. You have to remember that back in those days, it isn't like today where you could like check newspapers through the internet and see whether they matched or not. Back then, if you're giving an interview in New York and another one in Chicago or in New Orleans, you have very little to fear about your article's story that you gave contradicting another one in another place. Or maybe he just wasn't being careful yet, I don't know. But at any rate, he changed the story to just basically whatever sounded the best. When you don't have the truth, when something never happened in the first place, you tend to make mistakes and not tell the truth. Your accounts, since his accounts differed, it's a very strong sign that these things never happened in the first place, and he's just winging it, okay? Third article is from the New York Times, October 21st, 1882. And in this case, Newbrough says he began the actual channeling in the spring of 1880, an impression coming over him that it must be done. When he began, a bright light settled over his fingers. This would last 15 to 30 minutes, and when he disappeared, he could write no more. Okay, he later says, I could not read it, for the light would not let me, he said, and I did not know the contents of the book until it was ready for type. Okay, so here are the problems. First of all, he claims in these different accounts that he began in 1881, not 1880, so that's a contradiction. And the bright light settled over his fingers, and this was about him writing. He could write no more. For 15, 30 minutes he would write. Okay, so there's nothing about typing on a typewriter here. This is about writing, which is a really big contradiction. I think that's what always impressed everyone. The typewriter was just invented, Newbrough jumped out and got it, and typed it. This is simply my conjecture, but it seems pretty logical. For my part, he never channeled the book at all, but he got possession of it. How is a good question, and I'm very willing to talk about that later, but there's nothing certain. We may never know who really channeled it, and that's not the point. Just because you don't know who else channeled it doesn't mean that Newbrough didn't misrepresent things, because all the contradictions together point to one conclusion, that he did not channel this book because the story changes so much. And I'm not saying that this means Oahspe's false or illegitimate because he changed the story. It's like plenty of good people. A little child comes in the world, but he can be attacked by bad people. I see the child's a very good and pure creation of the Creator. And I see Oahspe as a beautiful, pure creation, but it doesn't mean that other people can't misuse it. And I'm not saying that Newbrough completely devastated the good purposes that Oahspe was originally channeled for, but I am saying he did damage it. And it's also true that if we disassociate Newbrough's approach to Oahspe from the book itself in a more pure and the natural and in tune with the natural purpose for which it was written in the first place, that is, to communicate directly with the Creator and to serve others with all your might, then the book becomes something more special, more purified. It's not about performing a bunch of rites that are Masonic-like and having priests tell us what to do and what to think and how to meditate. Oahspe is the opposite. It said to free yourself. And that's why I feel so strongly about this, because I feel like Newbrough set the whole movement back by Oahspe. We need to get him and his obtaining of Oahspe out of Oahspe so that more good can come through the book itself. So anyway, those are the contradictions about the typewriter. Never happened in this account, but of course that contradicts the other accounts. So again, if you lie about something that never happened in the first place, your story changes, and this is just one of the contradictions. Many, there's dozens and dozens. Okay, the fourth newspaper is from November 1st, from the Evening Star of Washington, D.C., and it was published in 1882. And here I'm quoting from the article. "The book," said the doctor, "was begun and finished inside of 2 years. 2 years less 2 weeks." And this is a contradiction because all the other accounts say it took 1 year less 2 weeks, 50 weeks. So this is saying this took 52 weeks in a year. That's in 2 years. That's 104 weeks. So this is saying this account is contradicting the other accounts because it took Newbrough 102 weeks to channel the book. All the other accounts say it took 50. So this is not a slight error. This is really a grave contradiction, which again is another sign that whatever Newbrough stories are about him channeling it, they're not true because they never happened. He's lying about it, just changing the stories he sees fit. He's just going with the moment. So anyway, again, it repeats, at the end of 2 years, all but 2 weeks, the communications ceased altogether, and he was commanded to collect the sheets and make a book and give it to the world. Okay, 2 years, very emphatically stated. Nope, not according to the other accounts. Okay, the fifth one was published later in 1960 in the addendum of the Ray Palmer Oahspe edition, one of my favorite editions ever. And it comes from the diary of the grandson of Edwin August Davis. So the account was given to one of Newbrough's best friends, Edwin Augustus Davis. He explained what happened, and then the grandson wrote down in his diary what Newbrough stated to his father. To his grandfather. Okay, so anyway, this is Newbrough's account. One morning in 1870. Okay, this corresponds with the 10 years previously. And so anyway, one morning in 1870, Newbrough went to the home of his friend Davis, who lived on 6th Avenue near the old Haymarket. And he told Davis about the entire channeling experience. In fact, about how it all began, how he was told to begin his period of preparation 10 years. So this agrees with that. But of course, it doesn't agree with the other accounts which said it was only a 6-year period, or that it just came into his head. Anyway, what happened was he was sleeping. Then the angels came and said, "Wake up, doctor, everything's all right. I only want to ask you a question and we will go." I sat up and asked, "Yes, if I can." The voice said, "Would you like to perform a mission for Jehovah?" And Newbrough said, "Yeah, if I can." And then Newbrough says, "I rubbed my eyes and saw that the room was lit up with pillars of soft light, so pleasing to the eyes that it was indescribable. I saw great numbers of beautiful spirits or angels." Okay, so this is not one angel named Ainu, and this is not something that just came into his head. So a completely different article, Newbrough says, "Oh, it just came into my head, I'll purify myself." No, this is just the angels just showed up at his bedroom and touched him and touched his shoulder and woke him up, and then they're very beautiful, and I don't have a problem with that. I'm sure angels are very beautiful, and that's very cool. And the angels, anyway, Newbrough says, "What is the mission? So I may know whether to say yes or no." And it said, "Jehovah would like you to live spiritually for 10 years, and at the end of that time we'll come back and tell you what it is we desire." they want purification. You must be pure, basically. So Newbrough does all of this, and then according to this account, and then 10 years later, in 1880, same thing happens again. All these angels come back. They're beautiful. They're bright. And they said, and then Newbrough says, "Am I worthy?" And the same voice says, "Yes, you have done well. You have passed our test." And so this is late. It happened, according to this account, it happened in late 1880, say December. So anyway, on January 1st, 1881, the channeling begins, which is a contradiction for the article which stated that Newbrough actually began it 2 years from the publication. So that's a contradiction in itself. And again, anyway, so we've got about, I don't know, over 12 contradictions in these 5 articles. And the reason they're contradictions is because nothing like this ever happened. It's just Newbrough lying from the seat of his pants and feeling he can get away with it because he just wants to become a sensation. Okay, again, Oahspe is a great book. Newbrough didn't completely ruin the book, but he did hinder it a lot because this book, it never really caught on. I mean, it's not like, there's millions of people reading it, and all the damage that he did, I'll get into. But again, you can say, well, I don't care about how it was made. I just care what's in it. Well, I do too, but this is all, but you have to understand, if you can't trust him to have actually channeled it, but claimed to have channeled it, then you have to judge all the other actions which he did, which is one, start communities and run them terribly, several communities and run them terribly, and 2, start these cult churches and cult lodges where a lot of weird stuff went on and a lot of strange anti-Oahspe ideas. So if Newbrough was actually following Oahspe's core principles, I wouldn't have any problem. I wouldn't care how the book was channeled. But he misdirected people, and that's why I have issue with Dr. John Newbrough. Okay, I'm going to end this here. I wish everyone much happiness and love and wisdom. And I will return with the next part of the Deceptions with Dr. John Newbrough. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it very much.